Step four is profitability, which I feel like we've kind of talked around, but maybe it's a case of taking a more proactive role in optimizing unit economics, franchisee performance, not just assuming that it will happen. We've kind of touched on that, but I wondered if there's anything else to say.
One of so just on that. So again, this is an example of lived experience, and it's linked to the strategic plan. One of the most important milestones that we created as part of a strategic planning process was one of the strategic objectives that we set for ourselves when I was in the franchisor space, was that we set a strategic objective around franchisee profitability. Now, for some that might already be the case, and if you're doing that, then I take my hat off to you, because that's fantastic. But the reality is that we actually, at the time, we earned our management service fees on turnover, not on franchisee profitability. And now, stating the obvious, we could have been earning fees because they were generating turnover, but if they are not profitable, we are storing up or creating a recipe for disaster. Because sooner or later, that's going to bite them and it's going to bite us.
In turn, the franchisor, yeah.
So again, it's so obvious when I say it now, and it will be obvious to anybody who is listening to this webinar. But the question is, are you doing it? And if you have a strategy in place to improve and optimize franchisee profitability, is it robust? Is it working? Are you all over that from a franchise support perspective? And again, this comes back to, franchise support teams have a lot of things to do. They really have a lot of responsibility. It's not an easy gig being part of the franchise support team. But if we recognise that the franchisor's success will equally suffer if franchise partners are not profitable and growing a profitable business. And by the way, if you want to scale a business, you need to have profit and you need to have cash. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see happening is that franchisors scale too quickly. They get a flurry of success. They think, okay, this is great. I'm on my way to having 100, 200 territories awarded or whatever. But actually, the level of profitability is not there. And the difference between having a single unit operator versus multi-site and all of the systems and all of the differences that takes, it's significant. So you've got to have your own house in order as a franchisor before you scale. And equally, from a franchise partner's perspective, just because somebody says they want to take another territory, or 2 or 3, or whatever, just because they want to, doesn't mean to say that's what they need. And you can literally take, if the initial territory isn't robust and isn't operating at real optimization at every level, then very quickly, you can start to just move 1 or 2 key people around and take the next territory, and you end up not only losing on the territory optimization that you've got for that territory growth, but it's amplified because the other territory now that you've blocked and awarded is also going to be underperforming. And those 2 things create negative emotional attractors, they create stress, they create anxiety, they create all sorts of behaviours that actually shouldn't have been allowed to happen in many cases in the first instance.
And if you've got these problems on a small scale, you're going to have them on a much bigger scale if you don't address them earlier on.
it's
maybe also we're not
frightening.
talking about rocket science. We're talking about tiny, noticeable things and making sure that you've dotted the I's and crossed the T's.
You are, and as we know within franchology, tiny noticeable things are like TNTs, and they are like dynamite, and they can be positive, like dynamite. It can be a positive explosion, or it can be absolutely devastating.